Werner, the official ladder of the NCAA basketball championships and the official ladder of professional contractors everywhere. Werner, #1 in ladders.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we've got for you today. Rece Davis and Jay Bilas were filling in. We talk Kentucky as a #1 seed and possible upsets there, and why you shouldn't be hating on Kentucky. And we also talk Tom Izzo and Mike Brey.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
How about this? You just roll into somebody's house and you start talking before they do. That's the way we roll around here. Rece Davis and Jay Bilas joining the Mike Golic show. Was there another Mike involved in this?
There's another Mike, but he has lost so many times on our bracket wager that he decides to not do the first week when the tournament's actually going to start because he's lost for the last 4 or 5 years in a row. So he gets out of Dodge is what he does.
Now, tell me this, and glad to have you with us on Mike and Mike this morning, by the way, and I'm thrilled to be here with you, Mike. But is there no more of the bracket wager and sheet of integrity? This has come to an end.
We did it, I think, 11 times, and I think it was 11 times, and I don't remember, quite honestly, which is true for a lot of things in the show that I just try and block out. That's why they say women like to block out, childbirth. I block out Greeny a whole lot of times. But basically, it ended with him milking a cow and the cow pooping on him. So we thought there's no possible way we can top that anymore, to think of anything better to happen. So we just decided to end it, and we'll have a competition with the fans this year. So, yes, it's done, but we will still have our sheet of integrity. I got to get your guys' thoughts on what you think of me doing multiple sheets, because to me, it's all about winning the cash in the office pools. That's what I do it for, and I really appreciate, at least Jay doing the show. Jay, thank you for being here this morning, because you were everywhere yesterday. Rece, you were too. I'll get you in a minute. But you were everywhere, Jay, doing the show and doing your first time doing Sports Center with Bucci as well. I can't even believe you're here this early.
It was awesome. And the one thing, I always tell Rece how much I admire what he does, because I can't imagine doing it. Now I can't imagine doing that Sports Center stuff day after day. It is really hard. Even though I made it look easy, oh God!
as you often do.
I didn't even know that the top 10. I didn't process at the time. I said, "Okay, we're going to do the Sports Center top 10 now," and Jay, you take the odd ones. And I was like, "Okay, great." So Bucci will start, and then I'll get the. And I didn't even process that. Oh, it starts at 10. Oh, and I got every foreign guy in my 5.
Yeah.
Every foreign guy that you cannot pronounce it, and phonetically there's no way they could write it out, that you could process it in that amount of time. And I almost went with the Bill Pito. Ain't happening.
Yeah. I'm with you, because when Greeny and I did it on Monday nights for a couple of football seasons, it seemed like I got every soccer highlight, which meant I was number 7 there with the kick. It was incredible to boot. And I'm not really excited to do this with you. The last time you and I did a show together was one of the most exciting times of my family's life. Was when,
because you got to do a show with me. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
That was the low point. I was going to the high point first, if we got to enjoy an undefeated season at Notre Dame in 2012. And then, it's a year and a half between the last game and the championship game. So I got to enjoy those. Actually, it was 44 days of Notre Dame being #1. And then I got to enjoy about 30 seconds of the game before that one was over in the national championship game. And you were nice enough to host that next morning on South Beach. When I thought I was going to be there hungover with happiness, I was there not hungover with sadness, and you did the whole show with us, being the Alabama guy that you are, after Alabama destroyed Notre Dame. So I'm not as happy to see you.
No, wait a minute. I mean, I did go to Alabama. I'm proud of my education. I'm a proud alumnus for sure, but, I take exception to that. I've worked very hard to become the college sports guy.
You are the college sports guy.
Right.
College basketball, college football. Congratulations on that as well. And I can't wait till we get him to see how Alabama does in this tournament.
Why are you going to kick a guy when he's down?
Did I do that?
They dismissed their coach yesterday.
I'm sorry. I guess we move on to the 1 seed.
Well, we'll move on to the 1 seed. There is one thing. We're happy to see you. But Jay and I were both hoping that Greeny was going to be here, because we wanted to upgrade our level of Greenberg from what we usually have from Seth to Mike. That would have been a significant upgrade for us.
Well, what goes on now is he's going to call you guys so much before Thursday anyway. He calls everybody. He never fills out his own sheet.
He does it every year, but it's not been as pronounced as when you guys had the bracket wager. Then it was constant whiny phone calls going back and forth as if he were looking at swatches for his his newest pajamas.
Do I have to be careful with this chair or anything?
No, just the only thing you have to when you sit in that chair, people usually try and end up sounding like Greeny, and you don't want to do that. You want to steer clear of all of that and just do what you normally do, and you're going to be just fine.
All right, easily the easiest thing that the committee had to do with this bracket is to make Kentucky the #1 overall seed. We're going to hit plenty about the Wildcats, #1 overall seed in the tournament. Mike and Mike, of course, presented by Progressive Insurance. Now you can test drive Snapshot to see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot, and all of the guests that we'll have this morning will be on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. I think Tom Izzo is going to join us from Michigan State. Mike Brey from Notre Dame, who, by the way, and you brought up the Notre Dame connection. I was very happy for Mike Brey Saturday night after Jay and I were both there when Notre Dame won the ACC tournament championship. Lifelong Notre Dame guy. Before we get to the bracket, I said that, and I think Mike said, as big a win as Notre Dame's ever had, as significant a victory for Notre Dame major sports as it has had outside of football national championships, because it was the first major conference championship, with all due respect to baseball, men's hockey, revenue-generating sports.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know what? I hadn't even realized that when that graphic was going up that they were going for their first. Then I remember they're in the Big East, and that was a really good conference at one point. So I guess I understood how they hadn't won that. So without question, this is huge for Notre Dame, and especially going to the ACC when they thought they were going to maybe be middle of the road team there to what they've done. And it's a team I've gotten used to, and we've seen, being my alma mater and watching all the time, that 3-point shooting team that if they were on, they had a chance. If they were off, it was going to be tough. They're legit, and I know we'll get more into them and their chances going forward. But this is a heck of a team, and I can't say I'm all in on the mustard-colored uniforms, quite honestly. If that's some sort of gold, I don't really know. But the team is really legit.
They're really good. And what was really interesting about the whole weekend for me was, Mike Brey came to Duke from DeMatha High School, D.C. guy, PG County guy, and he comes down to Duke and went to 5 Final Fours, I think, in his first 6 years as an assistant at Duke, and an ACC guy. So he brings Notre Dame in, and they beat Duke and North Carolina twice each in the same year. That hardly ever happens. I don't know how many times that's happened in the history of the ACC, but for Notre Dame to come in and do it this year was an extraordinary achievement. And I was really happy for Mike because, he's been a longtime friend and a mentor of mine. And to be able to watch that, North Carolina played great. I thought Notre Dame played great. Whoever won would be a great story. But whoever wins, when you watch them celebrate, you see what it really means to them. And that meant a tremendous amount to Mike, and I think it meant a tremendous amount to the players that have. Last year they lost 17 or 18 games. Mm-hmm. And this year they were bounced out of the tournament Tuesday at 2:00.
Yeah, they were.
And this year they make it all the way to Saturday night and win the whole thing. That was really impressive.
Yeah, I thought that they could have possibly been on the 2 line as you look at the bracket. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and start at the top with Kentucky, #1 overall seed. There was one somewhat surprising thing maybe about Kentucky and how it got to 34-0 going into the NCAA tournament. It was after the Wildcats were able to beat Arkansas and win the SEC tournament championship yesterday. One little thing seemed to be missing. Here's John Calipari.
Honestly, we all forgot. We forgot. So we walked off the court and someone said, "You forgot to cut down the nets." And I went, "Dudes, what are we going to tell the media? Because they're going to make a story. Tell them we're worried about the other nets." Literally forgot. Because it's me, there's some meaning to it. And there's some plan. There wasn't. We forgot.
Part of me wants to believe him, and the other part of me says, "Are you kidding me?" I heard him continue on saying we wanted to get back to the house, wanted to get out of there quick and get back home. They hadn't been home in a bit. But seriously? You forget to stay out there and cut down the nets?
I actually do believe that. But because why would he make up a story like that? Why not just say, well, we want the we want the next Nets. So I do believe that. I can see that happening.
It was funny last night when he asked me, when I asked him the question, what motivational message you're trying to send or whatever I asked him. He said, You want me to be honest with you? No, John, tell me a lie.
And that's exactly what you said.
I always love that one. I always love that one.
But he did. I think he's telling the truth, too.
And what do you, at this point, see, our sports are certainly different. You know, I just talked about the undefeated season for Notre Dame, but any football undefeated season, you're talking about 12 games before you get to a championship game, or 13 if you do a conference game before a title game if you're undefeated. Here, you know, you're in the 30s, obviously, of not losing and going on. So what's the – you keep hearing him, and I thought he has been great after games. Well, this guy played bad. This guy played bad. I pulled this guy for this. How do you keep motivating for that many games? What do you say?
It's intermediate goals. Like, you can't have one destination goal at the end because you can't accomplish that at the beginning of the season. And he's done – I was actually on the trip when they went to the Bahamas, and they played 6 games in 8 days this summer. And played, the Dominican national team, Puerto Rican national team. They played this professional team from France. They played them each twice. And it's really remarkable the way he's done this. And he's got an unselfish group, and they go against every stereotype that you could possibly have of Kentucky, of one and done, of all the things that we claim are wrong with college basketball. The way they've done it is really, honestly, everything that's right about college basketball. We just don't want to admit it. But he's been able to get these guys to sacrifice their minutes, sacrifice their game, sacrifice their points. It's an incredible achievement what he's done. And I do think that he's created little causes here and there and little slights and things like that. And now this is the easy part to motivate, because you get to say, hey, we're 0-0. But I think the tricky part now is to say, look, even though everybody's given us the trophy, we don't have this trophy. We have to go chase it just like everybody else. And so let's not try to defend something, or, there's nothing to defend. We have to pursue this with everything we've got. And if we don't, and we have to accept that we may lose and accept the consequences that we may lose.
So this is the easiest, obviously, team to talk about, and we're going to get into who we think can possibly knock them off. But I'll ask both of you, since you guys, obviously, Rece, you cover, the football and basketball, but this sport as well. If they were to lose, even in the championship game, is it a disappointing season?
Yes, and it's because of the bar that he has set for them and that they've set. Now, if that happens, they'll still be a great team. It should still be a successful season. But you said disappointment. I've sort of made the analogy that Kentucky, they only hang Final Four national championship banners there. And I made the analogy that one of the banners they do have up is for that Unforgettables team, the John Pelfrey group, Richie Farmer, who kind of turned the program under Rick Pitino. The Unforgettables, they love them because they turned the program around. These guys will be appreciated, but if they had a banner, it would be the Largely Forgottens or the Almost or something like that. It's unfortunate, but I think it's the way it is because they have set such a standard. Now they are trying to achieve perfection. If they were 33-1 and didn't make it, it'd be another great team like John Wall's team. If they go, 39-1 and lose that last one, that's the way it's going to be remembered. Whether that's fair, probably not, but I think it will be disappointment.
The way I look at it is, I don't remember the year, but the year that USC and Texas played in the national championship game, we crowned USC the greatest team of all time. Remember that? We had,
we said everybody in the world
greatest
out there
team of all time.
They do against the Roman Empire.
He's the Roman Empire, exactly. The greatest team of all time. They lose to Vince Young in Texas, and they were a historical footnote. Mm-hmm. And that's the way this would be. If Kentucky goes 40-0, they will be among the greatest teams to ever play. Whether they would beat the 69 UCLA Bruins or the 76 Hoosiers or not. I mean, we can argue about that, but they will be in that discussion forever if they win. If they don't, they won't be anywhere close to that discussion. And that may be unfair, but it's certainly the way it is. I mean, I actually felt that had that happen and when I was in college.
Yeah.
And boy, it hurts. That is no fun when you fall short of, say, it's like falling short of the top of Everest. You know, you might as well have not started. The way people on the outside look at it, it's really a remarkable thing.
Well, Kentucky, #1 overall seed and the prohibitive favorite to win the national championship. In exactly 1 minute, we'll look at the other #1 seeds and how early they might have locked up their position.
Did you know that some states require as much as 1,500 hours of training before licensing you to braid hair? I know that's a Bilas problem, but anyone off the street can legally call themselves a financial planner. It's up to you to make sure you're working with a certified financial planner professional. Just like you want your lawyer or doctor to have a professional degree, you want your financial advisor to have a CFP certification. CFP pros are required to put your interests above their own. They're vetted. That means certified by the CFP board to uphold the highest standards in education, experience, and ethics. What can a CFP pro do for you? All types of financial planning for just about any facet of your financial life: retirement, budgeting, estate planning, investment, taxes, insurance, and so on. If they're not a CFP pro, you just don't know. Don't leave your financial future to just anyone. Visit letsmakeaplan.org to find a CF pro near you.
Mike and Mike.
We like to play music there every now and then. It happens every now and then.
I would have assumed that it would have been Jeezy. You don't have to wait till the music stops.
No, actually, it better be all.
It's the Beach Boys, you know.
I know it's the Beach Boys.
It's all type of dance music now.
Oh, is it?
See the theme?
Yeah.
You see that?
I'm with you now.
How that works?
It's a little early for us, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest today will appear on the Subway Fresh Take hotline as we continue to look at the #1 seeds. The one thing that I do like that you guys have here, Golic, is this little board.
You like that board? Greeny loves that board. He gets carried away on it at times.
The thing I like about that, I wish I had the board. There's a Jay Bilas soundbite in here. Then I could just have him in sound bites. I could get him, cut him off right when I want to.
You do anyway.
How nice. You just want to have fun doing that.
Yeah, that would be great. All right, other #1 seeds. Andy Katz last night on our bracketology show had the interview with Scott Barnes, who's the athletic director at Utah State and the chair of the men's tournament selection committee, talking about one of the other #1 seeds, the Big Ten champion, Wisconsin. Here's what he had to say about how quickly the Badgers had a #1 seed sewn up.
#1 seed was actually wrapped up Saturday night for them.
Why?
Felt like the body of work overall was right what we needed. You think about the one loss they had, Kaminsky being out, the one bad loss, if you will, at Rutgers.
So I found that interesting. I don't know if you guys found that interesting. And was that, Jay, because Virginia had already lost as well? Obviously, if Virginia had moved on to the ACC championship game, then I wouldn't imagine would Wisconsin still have locked that up by Saturday night. I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, Mike, I don't really know because I'm not a big fan of the way this is done. I think if you don't have your mind made up by the start of conference tournament play, you don't know what you're doing. And you need to have your mind made up because you had an entire body of work that's already in the bank. How could it fluctuate that much based on one loss? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I've actually thought that the best way to do this, I think that the conference tournaments are about one thing and one thing only. They're about the automatic bid. That's it. And if we really want to make it fair, the one way we can make things as fair as possible is to and make the regular season mean more, is to make all of our at-large decisions at the close of the regular season. And then because the big shots get quality games in their conference tournaments, so they keep getting additional opportunities to add big-time wins to their resumes and maybe push a little guy out at the very end. Maybe. I don't like that. I think it should be about the automatic bid and win your league championship, the pride of that, and that's it. And I don't see how you see one game and all of a sudden you're moving up and down a seed line based on one game when you're at the top of the list. Now, I can see it at the end of the list because those teams don't have any wins at all anyway. Mm-hmm. So, but at the top of the list, if you don't have your mind made up, that strikes me as being a little bit odd. I don't like the way they do it.
Do you agree with that? Because
I when he first proposed it, I thought, I don't know. The more I thought about it, and you wrote an article on ESPN.com, and I read through it, and when you watch it laid out logically like that, it actually makes a lot of sense. And just in terms, not to take it away from that, in terms of Wisconsin specifically, I don't really understand why people were hesitant. To me, if anybody got, and look, this is nitpicking for sure because the committee did a good job.
Really good.
I think that I thought Wisconsin was the number 2 overall seed, that they should have been bracketed opposite Kentucky and not met until the national championship game. I thought they should have been seeded ahead of Villanova and Duke. So I didn't have this big question about whether Wisconsin was the number 1 seed that some did.
I guess my thought on the tournaments are, and again, those are the other number 1 seeds, Kentucky, Villanova, which got the number 2 seed overall. As you mentioned, I was surprised at that as well, then Duke and Wisconsin. So going into the conference tournament, you had Wisconsin as a 1 seed over Virginia. Mm-hmm. So I guess my point is, because we're going to get into this eye test thing
over
here.
Virginia. No, going in, I did not until I saw that. That's a fair point.
So
until I saw. Well, I guess Louisville. Their loss to Louisville factored into it, but until I saw up close that Justin Anderson is nowhere near Justin Anderson. They are not as good without him at full strength. They're still right there and near the 1 line, but I thought they were at more of a 2.
How would you factor that in, Jay, based on if it's just the regular season? Because they did look different once he came back. I think we had this anticipation that once he came back and kind of worked himself into game shape, he'd be okay. But the hand appears to still be bothering him. If you have your seed line laid out 1 through 68 prior to the conference tournament, then a team like Virginia looks different. Would you suggest under your plan then still have some latitude to move them around on the line?
That's absolutely fair, because that's a variable that I don't know who has figured out what to do about. You know, Kenyon Martin gets hurt. You don't have Kenyon Martin in 2000. What do you do with Cincinnati? You can't leave him as a number 1. If you've got an injury that you have to figure out, that's a hard one. The other stuff, all things being equal, I don't understand how 1 game at the end of the line means anything when you're talking about the top teams. You can make a judgment before seeing Wisconsin against Michigan State as to how good they are. That to me is a no-brainer.
Mike and Mike.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Rece Davis and Jay Bilas, who nice enough to sit in all morning after a long, long day for them yesterday. Sorry I took it out there. I knew you were going to, but I wanted to start by.
I'm glad you did.
I just showed you guys Greeny's half-court shot. We had the old what we started on the show the one day. You make 10 half-court shots. You make one, you get $20 million. You miss, you go to jail for 2 years. Obviously, we didn't play those odds at all. But you saw Greeny. We went and did it over at the hoop we got here. Greeny did it on the first shot, throwing it like a baseball. It was unbelievable.
You showed me the video, and you told me he threw it like a baseball. And I was like, no, I don't know how you make it. And he made it twice.
Yeah, he did it in warm-ups a couple times. Yeah,
you know, we've seen, Jay, on College Game Day, we've had 3 half-court shot winners winning $18,000, and none of them threw it like a baseball. They all shot it. I don't know how you make it like that.
It didn't look real. It looked like it was graphically created. And it's really actually kind of depressing that someone could do something that non-athletic.
There it is. Success. You're watching on television, and he banked it.
I mean, I'm just stunned that it went in.
Why did he need a run-up for it, by the way?
Listen.
He threw it off the wrong foot, and it went in.
He threw it off the wrong foot. And then he danced. He did a LeBron dance, and then God knows what else he did. But he actually, here was the most depressing thing. You just talked about.
Wrong foot. Watch this.
That's amazing. You talked about depressing, though? He said that was the greatest sporting achievement of his life.
That I believe. That I absolutely believe.
Okay. Now, I will say this. He's and Greeny and I are friendly, but like we don't spend time together.
Right.
But he's a good golfer.
It's the best way to be friendly with him is not spend time with him.
That's how you maintain a good friendship with Greeny.
but he's a good golfer, right? He's a good athlete, right?
Yeah, he's a good golfer.
Good hand-eye coordination. So maybe that explains
that. That could be something. I don't know what either that or he closed his eyes and screamed like a girl. One of the two. I don't know.
If he wants people to think he's a good athlete, they should stop showing it.
That's very true. That is very true. Oh, my gosh, that was funny. All right, I had to show you that.
Would you make the half-court shot if you had 10 tries or 2 years in prison?
Would you do it? Yes. Would you even attempt it if someone said, Jay, $20 million you make one of those or 2 years in jail?
The way I feel right now, 2 years in jail, I could get some sleep. I would absolutely do that.
No one would be saying, hey, you got another sports center.
Either way, I get some sack.
3 squares in a bed. There you go.
All right, we're continuing to look at our number 1 seed. Some of the reaction that you're getting in your email and that we're starting to see on Twitter, different places, a surprise that Duke got a number 1 seed despite the fact they didn't win the ACC regular season championship or the tournament championship. From my perspective, I thought they had more quality wins than anybody else, so I didn't have a problem with it. Not that you were surprised necessarily, but how would you answer those who question the lack of the championship for Duke to get a number 1 seed?
If you want to have that as a criteria, I'm cool with it. That's fine, but that's not a criteria. Now in these 15, 16-team leagues, there are 18-game schedules. They are unbalanced. And if you just go by the schedule that Duke played in conference, their schedule is actually more difficult than Virginia's. And that's not just my opinion. That's based upon the strength of schedule ratings that are done on BPI, RPI, you name it. It's more their conference schedule is more difficult than Virginia's. They also beat Virginia head-to-head at Virginia when Virginia was at full strength. So a lot of these sort of head-to-head comparable opponents, things like that. And then Duke won at Wisconsin. They won at Louisville. They won at Syracuse. They won at North Carolina. There are a whole bunch of things that they did, which when you stack them up side by side, actually Kansas made a case like that, but they lost a lot of games too. So that, I think, put them at the end of the 2 line. I think Virginia would have been a 1 absent the fact that Justin Anderson is injured. If he's full strength, they are a 1. The one thing I couldn't understand was when we saw the final seed list, and I think you guys have mentioned this, Villanova being the 2nd overall seed is hard to understand.
Tell us a little bit. They're the number 1, I think, as people look at it, probably know the least about right now, about their year.
Well, Villanova's really good. I mean, they're an older team. They had a great year last year, similar year, but they've won more games this year, and they've been more solid this year. But Villanova's got really good guards, led by Darren Hilliard, a left-hander. They've got solid inside guys. Daniel Chefu was the most improved player in the Big East last year. He almost got it again this year. And Javon Pinkston has had an extraordinary year, leadership-wise. His play on the court, everything's been really good. But when you look at the quality of their wins and all the eye test stuff, not that they shouldn't be on the 1 line. They should be. But I thought they were the 4th number 1. I was really surprised to see them at 2. And I'm really surprised to see Wisconsin at 4. Look, these things, we're splitting hairs on a lot of these things because we're talking about, I think there were 6 teams that were worthy of the 1 line. And that's a good problem to have because sometimes you don't have 4 teams that are worthy of the 1 line. Now, we get a little bit deeper in this field, and we've got a weak field. The top is really strong, but there are 31 teams out of the 68 that have 10 or more losses. That's happened one other time in history, and that was 2011. And that tournament was brutal. Now, we've got better teams at the top than we had in 2011. 2011, that's when UConn beat Butler in the final game. I think it was in Houston. And I would have gone to 2 years of prison and watched that game.
I sat on this very set. You were in Houston. We didn't go to the Final Four that year, but you did.
Lucky you.
Yeah, no, you did. And I think I remember throwing to you and saying, well, we just saw the worst significant game in the history of basketball. I mean, it was a terrible basketball.
It was a rough, but the whole Final Four was rough.
Yeah.
But this will be, I think this will be a great tournament. The only thing I worry about a little bit is some of the teams near the end of the line, this is a really weak bubble, and you're wondering, can they really give resistance here? Are we going to see upsets? Because sometimes some of the upsets we see are because of the committee screwed up the seeding.
Right.
And I didn't think they screwed up the seeding, actually. I thought the seeding is pretty darn good. It's pretty close to what I think most of us would have done. And that's pretty good. So I thought the committee did a really good job overall, really good.
The best of Mike and Mike.
What a great way to spend the Monday morning after Selection Sunday. You wake up about 4:30, you get ready, and you drive toward work, and you get to swing by the hotel and pick up Jay Bilas and do what I do on game day, make sure that I basically serve as Bilas's valet, as they would say on Downton Abbey. Rece Davis and Jay Bilas sitting in for Mike Greenberg. Guest in the Mike Golic house. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest today will join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline.
Do they just make sure? Are you responsible for Jay? Is that kind of how it works?
You know, I'm not going to take. We are treated so ridiculously well on the road. Is the only thing that approaches, and I say even exceeds the way you and Greeny are treated on this show when we're on the road. Am I right?
To the point where we're like a pet bird or something that if we were released into the wild, we wouldn't know how to fend for ourselves, because now if I'm left to my own devices, I don't know how to get my own sandwich anymore after the way we're treated on game day. You know, we're asked, what can we get for you? What do you need? You know, if we're not like waited on hand and foot, I might have starved to death. I had no way to get back to the hotel last night after SportsCenter.
You just kind of stood there and waited for someone to scoop you up, huh?
I asked Bucci for a ride because I was thinking I'm gonna have to walk back to the hotel, and that was not a pleasant. Not a pleasant thought.
You did SportsCenter after your whole day, your guys' whole day doing the brackets. You did SportsCenter with Bucci. That was your first time doing it.
First time doing it.
What's the whole deal? How was that?
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah.
I loved it. I had a great time. But I have far more respect for guys like Rece Davis and John Bucci and the like than I ever had before after doing that, and I don't want any part of it again because it's really hard.
I'm with you. Greeny and I did it on on Mondays during football seasons, and I soccer highlights, trying to do the names.
Yeah, I mean,
just very difficult.
So you and I are in the same boat. I mean, I know I made it look incredibly easy.
That's how you roll,
and it was awesome. But it was hard.
Have you ever been around him when it wasn't a national broadcasting type of thing where Jay Bilas Unfiltered?
No, I have not.
Oh,
I have not.
Let me tell you something.
Is that special?
No, this dude is hilarious. So I tell him last night, I said, go to SportsCenter and just be banquet Jay Bilas. But maybe clean up the language just a little bit here and there.
13, huh?
That's pink slip. Pink slip, you'll never work again.
Can't go down that road, huh? Well, I love having you guys here, and this is what I got out of the first 2 hours. So we've had 2 hours already with Rece Davis, Jay Bilas, breaking down the brackets, the number one seeds. We went through every region. So I'm trying to glean stuff from this for my sheet, and right now, this is my sheet. Come on, Mo, get a close-up of this thing. This is my sheet.
And those of you on radio, stare hard into your radio right now.
I'm going to say it after we see it. The only thing I've done is put Kentucky all the way to the championship game.
Well, you've got to win.
That's what I've gotten out of you guys so far. That's it. I don't know what else to make of what you guys you're supposed to convince me of more things here, and I got Kentucky playing in the championship.
That's all you need.
That's it.
Do you remember the greatest college basketball promotional vehicle that the worldwide leader has ever had? Bob Goulet singing about college basketball teams. You could update it. Here's what's going to happen with the NCAA tournament this year. Kentucky's going to kick a little tush, and then it's back on the bus.
We are Kentucky. Kick a little tush and get back on the bus.
Exactly. So it's the best promo vehicle this network has ever had for college basketball.
Do you guys
That's what they're going to do.
Do you guys believe? And let's go again. Kentucky, the number one overall seed, undefeated, as John Calipari said. They just forgot to cut down the nets. They didn't do it intentionally. And we believe him because
I believe him.
Why would he?
Yeah.
If he truly was using it as motivation, say we're only cutting down one net. Why wouldn't he just say that? So this is that. Do we? This question was brought up about a week or so ago, and I'll ask both of you. Do you think the tournament will be more exciting watching someone try and beat Kentucky, or less exciting because Kentucky, you think, is going to run the table?
More. I think it'll be more. I think it'll be similar to 1991 when UNLV went into the tournament undefeated and everybody thought it was going to be a coronation, because the games are going to be great. There are going to be other stories and other paths that people are going to take and journeys that are going to be fabulous, just fabulous, and we're going to have great games. And when we get to the Final Four, if Kentucky is still there, and I think they will be, it's going to be magnificent theater to see if somebody can knock them off. And there are other capable teams. And I remember I was there in 91. I was a grad assistant on the Duke staff when Leitner, Hurley, Hill, Brian Davis, all those guys, Tony Lang, beat UNLV. And nobody thought that could happen outside of that locker room. And, heck, I was in the locker room. I didn't think it would happen. Just an amazing accomplishment. But it was an incredible tournament. And it'll be an incredible tournament this year, whether Kentucky wins or not.
Generally speaking, and there are always exceptions, I think that for people who don't have a dog in the hunt, sports are more entertaining for them if there is a giant at which everybody is shooting. And so I think it's going to make it far more entertaining that every little divergent path is all going to lead back. Does this mean this team has a shot at Kentucky? Does this mean that team does? It's really been the dominating thing, the theme of the entire season in college basketball, and judging from people reaching out to the show right now, it's pretty much the theme as well. Kim Mather tweets us, and Jay, this is for you. Kentucky grad agrees with you 100%, by the way, about the suspenders of those wearing blue and white suspenders of the Big Blue Nation. So you do have at least one Wildcat supporter there.
You did bring that up before, that they, that's one of their...
that they don't dress well enough to support such a great team.
Well, most Kentucky fans dress beautifully, but they just going into the game at the SEC title game in Nashville, we saw a couple shots of folks wearing blue and white striped suspenders, and I didn't think it was the best possible look.
and at Clay Films also tweeting Kentucky, what you said, Kentucky is everything we love about college ball players, but they added this, except they're all leaving next year.
Not true. Not true.
I'm going to get to that. Mike and Mike reminding you that if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Celebrate spring birthdays with a smile. Go to 1-800-Flowers/ESPN for flowers and gifts starting at $29.99. And to your point, I think Kentucky is a far more veteran team than given credit for.
Well, we label Kentucky as one-and-done guys when they're recruited. They're all one-and-done guys. And we seem to think that Beelzebub himself came up with the one-and-done concept, when it's just a bunch of people that are getting a better offer. They're getting a better offer. So it's not that they're turning their backs on education. They don't believe in education. Oh, my God, this is awful. It's a mockery of education. It's not. They're getting a better offer. All right. 6 guys on this Kentucky roster came back and didn't go pro. 2 of them came back twice. Mm-hmm. So the idea that they're all a bunch of one-and-dones is clearly not true, because half their roster came back. Now, maybe some of the guys will come back yet again, and some of the guys in this class, I don't think this entire class is going to go pro. Some of them will come back. So the idea they're all one-and-done just isn't true. So the thing of us saying, well, they should keep them in for 2 years. The NBA should pass their rule, keep them in for 2 years. Well, that's already been accomplished at Kentucky for a good many of these guys. And that's kind of my point about Kentucky is what we say we want in a basketball team. Play for the name on the front of the jersey. Sacrifice for the good of the team. The we of the game instead of the me of the game. They've done all of it. And they're not all one-and-dones. And they're great in interviews. Like, they're great with the media. They are nice young men. Mm-hmm. All of them are nice young men. None of them suspended. None of them kicked off the team. None of them get in trouble with the law. So what do we want? Like, do they need to split the atom with a butter knife in their spare time in our presence for us to think that, well, they're good students, they're good guys? Their GPAs all, if you believe what's been reported, their GPAs are all over 3 point. Their team GPA 3.2 or something like that. So what do we want? Like, what do we want that they're not doing? Because they're doing it.
So on that, and we're going to get to the number 1 seeds, and we think all the number 1 seeds, did they get it right? And how much does it matter? Let's do a general question here. Going back to football, in college football, after the bowl games and then the title game, now that's only 2 teams, but the bowl games that are in early January, players have about a week or two to decide whether they want to go underclassmen go into the NFL or not. There's that date in mid-January if they have to decide. They're thinking about changing that in college basketball. So from your guys' thought process, will that be good? And the thought is to move it back, I think, about 5 weeks to sometime in May. And at the Combine, underclassmen can be invited to the Combine. And basically, if you don't get invited to the Combine, it's probably a red flag that says you should go back to school. But after the Combine, you get evaluated by, NBA scouts to see where you may fall, and then you can make your decision. So you may get good players who go but don't get drafted to be able to come back to college. You think that's a good thing, what they're talking about? You think that? I
do. I think it's a good thing for the players. The more information and quality information they get in making their decision, the better. It's not going to change anything for the schools because they're not going to be able to replace those guys whether they decide they're going to leave in April or they decide they're going to leave in late May or early June. That really doesn't matter, in my judgment anyway. I tend to think that this is all much ado about nothing, that I don't think it's going to change much at all. The same number of guys are going to continue to go because there's a lot of money out there, and they want to get their clock started on their second contract a lot faster. And that's kind of my beef about this thing is we're running a multi-billion-dollar business in college sports, pretending like it's high school sports, and it's not. It is not amateur. There's nothing amateur about it. We can call it whatever we want, but it's not amateur. The thing that bugs me is that we're laying it all on the players, saying, "Oh, you're turning your back on education," and no, they're not. They're turning towards a better deal. They're getting a better deal, and they can still go back to college. A lot of them do. If we really believe what we're telling the rest of the world, that colleges and universities believe in lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. All right, well, then why can they not come back? And because the Kentucky guys come back every summer. They're back all the time. There are all these online courses that people take. And look, we're not telling CEOs who want to get their MBAs, we're not telling them, hey, you want to come get your MBA, you better be all in. So quit your job and you come tether yourself to this campus for 3 years and get your MBA. We are not going to do night programs for you just because you want to work and make a bunch of money. And we are not going to let you take online courses because those are phony. You are going to come here and tether your butt to our campus for 3 years, and you're going to be a real student, and you're going to do it our way. They don't. They work with them, and everybody seems to do just fine. But the athletes, wait a minute now, this is a contagion that we can't let near the rest of our university. We can't let these athletes screw everything up. But we will take the billions. We'll take the billions that they generate. If I might borrow from my longtime football partner, Lou Holtz, other than that, I'll mark you down as undecided. Exactly. We are going to tether our butts to our Final Four picks, which we've already done later on. Coming up, that'll be in just a moment. First, Golic's got a word from Castrol. I'm going to tether to Castrol right now. They just introduced a new motor oil with intelligent molecules. Listen up. Up to 75% of engine wear occurs during warm-up. Warm-up can last up to 20 minutes. Most trips last less than 20 minutes. Do the math. Your motor oil isn't ever fully activated. The result is engine wear. Castrol GTX Magnatech has intelligent molecules that cling to critical engine parts even when the engine is off. Unlike other motor oils, it doesn't need time to warm up when the engine is turned back on. You get instant protection from the moment you start, and it leaves critical engine parts 4 times smoother. New Castrol GTX Magnatech, the only motor oil with intelligent molecules that cling to protect from the moment you start. Available at Walmart, major auto part retailers like AutoZone, and Quick Lube centers. I'm not going to lie, I could use the intelligent molecules for those when I was in school, clinging to my brain.
So you never got that mental engine fully engaged.
A little too busy. I was too busy kind of ruining the molecules in my brain.
At Notre Dame, though, wasn't one of the more popular bars called the Library?
It was
so
called.
So if Mom and Dad called, you could say I was at the Library?
And that is exact. Now, that had closed down by the time I got there. But when my brother Bob was there, that's exactly what he said to my parents. Where are you at? Well, I'm going to the library later. And completely pulled the wool over their eyes on that one.
But tethered to the library.
He did, and learned nothing there at that library.
In South Bend, I used to get dragged at Corby's.
Corby's?
And then Club 21.
No, I don't remember. I
think it was Club 21.
Corby's
Since
was
been closed down.
Corby's was a hangout. That was 5 points. We call it. That was walking distance, which was fantastic from the campus. But that a lot of those have closed down as well. The kids have to go to different places now after they, of course, do their schoolwork.
And after they turn 21.
I would go with Raftery.
That's a given.
Raftery would take me.
Oh,
Then that's a place that stayed open all night.
And plus, he's been over 21 for a long time.
he says one more 27 times.
And the nickname Uncle One More. Rece Davis, Jay Bilas sitting in for Greeny today. Mike Golic gracious enough to have us here. We're going to go on record and pick our Final Fours in a minute. One of the things that I brought up that we didn't get to do last night on bracketology that I thought was pretty interesting. You go the last 5 years in the Final Four and you add up the seed totals. The average seed total the last 5 years has been 17, meaning, you have a 1, a 1, an 8, and a 7, or whatever the math would be. Typically, when you do it in hurried fashion, as we have to do on that show, you end up picking the lower or the higher seeds with a lower number because, frankly, they're the better teams. Right. That's what makes more sense. Why do you think that we've had such a high seed total the last 5 years in this? There was one outlier where the total was 9. Everything else, the number was pretty high.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I mean, I think we've had a period where you've had a couple teams break through because that's a 5-year period. VCU would have gone in as a 12, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's happened.
I think they were an 11.
11, 12. So that's happened. The other part of it is last year the tournament was just horribly seeded. Kentucky was an 8. Kentucky wasn't an 8. And so you had an 8 and a 7 in the championship game, and they said, "Oh, highest seed ever!" Now all of a sudden the little guys rose up last year. The little guys like UConn and Kentucky. Come on, and that's the thing. Like with some of these 5-12 upsets, we make it sound like the little guy is doing a couple of things. That 5-12 sequence the other day, or that piece they had last night. Oregon and Oklahoma were the 12s that won. And come on, man, it's not always the little guy. Sometimes it's the big guy that got put down there at 12 that was probably better than their seed and wound up clipping somebody.
You brought that up in the break about that. I can't get to 17. I mean, I'm trying.
Well, here's what I did last night because I won't give who I actually picked because I know we're going to do that in a minute. But when I said I had to get to 17, if memory serves, I think I went Kentucky because why would you change that?
Why would you have to go there?
Yeah, and so you probably need a team that's really high seed. And I mentioned earlier in the show a team that I like that could make a run because of its parts, but I don't really like the way it's playing at the moment is Ohio State. So if I had to get to 17, I'd go 1 Kentucky, 10 Ohio State to get me to 11. Then I think I went Iowa State out of the South, which would get me to 14. And then I have Michigan State. That's who I picked on the show last night. Stick with them, and that would be higher than 17. Now that is 21, that is not a likely Final Four, and I understand that.
I can beat that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going to take Kentucky. I'm going to take Kentucky and the other 16 seeds.
That way you at least get the winner.
Yeah, and I'll have an unbelievable. I'll have 49 and I'll still win.
I think that would
do it like the Price is Right. You want to get closest to the number,
but you can't go over.
No, I want to go way over.
I think that's actually a good one of those good Vegas prop bets. That's been the average for the last X number of years. What's make the
somebody tweet us at that 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed and let us know if you can make that wager.
At Mike and Mike, can you make it? I mean, can you? I couldn't get to 17. As I would bet almost the house that it would be under 17 this year.
I think it will be this year.
Yeah, I think it will be as well. So on that note. Rece, we'll start with you. What is your Final Four?
Okay, this is the one that my butt is tethered to.
This is the one your butt is tethered to. Okay, yeah, that's the thing. You guys have to do it right away.
But we've already done it.
We've done it. So let me remember what I did.
That's what I mean. You guys yesterday. You guys had to do this right away.
I had. If we go with the Elite Eight, I had Kentucky and Notre Dame in the Elite Eight, and I have Kentucky moving on to the Final Four. In the West, I had a rematch of last year's Elite Eight game between Wisconsin and Arizona. But while I think that would be a great game, overtime win last year for Wisconsin, I'll go with Arizona this time and say it'll be Kentucky and Arizona on one side in the Final Four. In the South, I had Duke and Gonzaga in the Elite Eight game, and I'm going to say Gonzaga finally does it. I think it's been 5 straight tournaments in which they haven't made it past the first weekend. I'll have Gonzaga into the Final Four, a little bit of a flyer. And my big flyer comes out of the East just because I think it's highly unusual. Only 4 times in tournament history have you had 3 number 1 seeds. Typically, you have somebody off the radar most years, not all years, but most. I'll go Michigan State because if you look at Michigan State, the one Achilles heel other than botching end of games as they did yesterday has been free throw shooting. I think there was a number, if they had just made 70% of their free throws in their losses, which is not an unreasonable number, I think Michigan State would have 3 losses or 3 or 4 losses, right. And as it is, they have 11. So those would be my 4.
And that, by the way, would equal 12. That would be 12 on your 17
and it was by far
scale.
The highest total of seed numbers, and only because of Michigan State
right.
that the other guys had.
If I start in the South, I have Gonzaga and Duke in the regional final, although Iowa State was awfully tempting instead of Gonzaga.
They had to be one of the more tempting teams out there, don't
tempting.
They?
Yeah, because they play with such a freedom. But Gonzaga does the same thing and has the same they actually have a more efficient offense, and they've got more size. So I took that, and then I've got Duke beating Gonzaga. And I think the one reason I had that is primarily because of Justice Winslow. I don't think Gonzaga has anybody to match up with him, but maybe I'm getting too far in the weeds on that. In the West, I have Arizona and Wisconsin in the regional final, and Wisconsin getting past Arizona simply because Wisconsin doesn't make any mistakes. They don't foul, and they don't make mistakes, and they've got Frank Kaminsky and I've got this Urban Meyer vibe with Bo Ryan this year, with losing his point guard and having his backup point guard come in and run the team just as well. Then in the Midwest, I've got Kentucky and actually Wichita State in the regional and in the regional final, and obviously I have Kentucky getting past Wichita State and winning there. And then in the East, I have Villanova and Virginia. And I have Virginia getting past Villanova. I am betting on Justin Anderson coming back and his hand being better than it was in the last 3 games, because he did not score in the last 2 games. Did not score. And he's too good for that. And clearly that hand is an issue. And he can't grip the ball, he can't dribble the ball, he can't pass the ball, he certainly can't shoot it. So if he's back to anywhere near what he was before, that's very much a Final Four team.
2 quick things. Your total then is 5. You have 3 1 seeds in there and a 2, so his total is pretty low. And I love the Iowa State. They play with so much freedom. What is this, Braveheart all of a sudden?
Yes, it is.
How about is Mel Gibson going to be waving?
I'm telling you, Mike, the basketball has become an overcoached game. It's incredible. It used to be that most coaches would teach you how to play and then let you play. And you play instinctively. And that's one of the great things about Iowa State. They're not alone there. There's several teams that do it, but not as many as in the past. And I think you can see it in the scoring. That scoring is way down. Overcoaching is part of that. Davidson is a team that when you watch them, Bob McKillop, their coach, talks about principles over plays. They don't run plays. They do have some plays, but they don't call a play every time down. They have principles, and they play off those principles, and the players make reads, and they react to the defense. And it is really hard to guard. They're a top 8 offense in the country. Now, their defense isn't as good, and they're not as good inside as some other teams. But I'm telling you, nobody wants to guard that stuff. Nobody wants to guard it. Their guards are terrific, and it is fun to watch.
Shorten the shot clock, kill the timeouts, play quarters, principles over plays, and the game will be rolling.
Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike on the day after Selection Sunday. Rece Davis, Jay Bilas sitting in with our host, Mike Golic. Don't forget to tune in to the Mike and Mike bracket special on Wednesday. It is brought to you by Werner Ladder.
Well, I appreciate you guys sitting in. Again, more Jay Bilas because, Rece, last time you sat in for me, it was the day after Alabama, your alma mater, beat my alma mater, Notre Dame, in the national championship game. So I don't.
A game not nearly as close as the 42-14 score indicated.
What? Wait a minute. Really? That's where you had to go with that? That's where you went with that?
You gave me like 3 opportunities.
I did. I mean, that was such a great year and so many days of talking so much smack as number one, and that was over in 30 seconds. And you hosted that next morning, and I hated you for it. And Jay, I always appreciate you. You and I have fun. We go back and forth a little bit. We have some disagreements over the NCAA and stuff, so that's always fun to do. But I look forward to that way more than talking to him after his alma mater beat me. I'll tell you that much right now. And so maybe it can change when our alma maters meet in this Oh, that's right, Alabama. Alabama's not in it. Notre Dame's a 3 seed, and we're going to talk to Mike Brey in about 10 minutes. Woo!
very, very sensitive of you.
Woo! In case you didn't hear me the first time.
Alabama's changing basketball coach. That is very,
I don't mean it that way. Oh, sure, make me out to be a bad guy now.
Well, that's not really.
Yeah.
You made it easy for me to do so. Okay, Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, and jumping on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline right now is the head coach of the Michigan State Spartans, Tom Izzo. Tom, thanks for being with us. So, what do you think of your draw? You're sitting there with a 7 seed opening up against Georgia in the East.
Well, just listening to you guys, I was wondering if you're still celebrating some St. Patrick's Day and somebody's drinking on the set there. The way you guys are having such a good time.
Listen, that happens every morning.
I'm not having quite as good a time. You know, we had a chance last night to do something really special and didn't quite get it done. And I don't know about seeds. I don't know where we belong. You know, we've been a funny team all year. It's kind of a hard team to figure out, but we are playing some of our best basketball down the stretch. And to be honest with you, might have had one of the best 3-game stretches, that we've had in a long time. I mean, I thought we played awfully well against Ohio State and pretty well against Maryland, and did, just about everything we wanted to do against Wisconsin. But I think you got to give them a lot of credit. We didn't have them not only down on the ground, we had our foot on their throat, and they still got it done. And I think that speaks volumes for what kind of coach and kind of team they are.
And the run you're on, as you mentioned, is incredible. And you say March, and you say Michigan State, and you say Tom Izzo, and you see great basketball. From a coaching standpoint, and you've been through this a lot of years, of putting games away and looking forward to the next, or using them as coachable moments. So when overtime rolls around, all of a sudden you guys don't score a point in overtime. How do you use that as a coaching moment? Do you not even talk about it, or do you talk about that and use it as a teaching moment before you move on?
Well, I'm not a very good guy of not talking about something. If it's bothering me, I usually let somebody know about it, and that's why I actually called a timeout with seconds left. I tried to capture the moment to tell our guys that, there's such a difference between one and done time. I've said my whole career, you can win a lot of games one way, but to win championships and to do things, the margin for error shrinks. That's why there's only one champion, and that's the moment I wanted to capture. So sure, you try to capture it. I think coaches are always learning, and players definitely are learning. We've got 30, 40 years on them, so our experience doesn't always get us through, but giving them as much experience and as much information in critical times, I think, is part of the process.
Tom, your players play so hard, and you coach them hard. When you have a player at the end of a game in a late-game situation that makes a mental mistake, whether fouling a three-point shooter or a turnover, whatever it is, how do you handle that, one, in the moment, and two, after the game when you've got to pick up the pieces and move on?
Well, that's $1 million question from the Dookie. I expect that from you, but we've done it all this year. Whatever situation, I had an NBA guy call me after the Indiana game, and he said, "You've just covered a year full of issues, game situations in the last 15 seconds." So we have done that, Jay. But the truth of it is, our team pretty well, and it's not as talented a team as I've had, and we've had some injuries and lost a couple guys, but because of that, your margin for error is less. And I mean, we're talking about Denzel. I mean, I use players' names because everybody knows it. I don't have a better kid. I don't have a harder worker. I don't have a more dedicated. His dad went to school here. He loves the place. He bleeds for the former players that played here. And he's my best free throw shooter and the guy I want with the ball at the end of the game. And it just happened. It was a situation where we had the chance, but he also made some big shots, and that's what I told him. He made some big plays that or we wouldn't even have been there. And then when we got back to the building here late last night, I just took him aside, me and him, and I just kind of went over what I thought he's got to continue to grow on and what I thought he did for us, which was so many positive things.
What do you look for, Tom, when a player has a moment like that, particularly one that you rely on so heavily? What do you look for to make sure that he's ready to give you everything you need in the NCAA tournament now?
Well, the first thing I look for, and I think I heard Jay talk about this before, even on the selection committee, you got to see the body language, the body of work. And watching a guy in the locker room after the game, you instantaneously know who it bothers, who it doesn't. Some guys, it's water off a duck's back. It's scary, but there's just not as many guys that maybe take it. For him, walking down that long hallway was probably the hardest 100 steps he ever took. And so, you kind of know that, and you got to show him. Everybody says let it go. Well, you can't change history, but you sure as hell can learn from it. And so you keep trying to do that, as I do for myself. I still do some stupid things, and I'm getting a little older now. So that's the way it works. That's why you're always teaching and you're always trying to learn. And I think I tried to learn from it, and I tried to teach from it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom. Last year, you guys were picked by all the analysts, including President Obama, to win the national championship. This year, you're picked to win the championship only by Rece Davis. What is more disconcerting, having everybody love you or just Rece?
Credit for?
Well, you got Rece. Where did you go to college?
He didn't. He went to Alabama.
Oh yeah.
Hey, but Tom, I lived in the city limits of Flint long enough to get the tattoo.
I remember that.
Okay.
I remember that. But you're down there with my good friend Nick Saban, and so but those kind of higher academic people didn't pick it right. The Golics and the Bilases, the Notre Dame and the Duke guys. So. You're a football guy. I'm a football guy. God bless you, Rece.
and it is close to St. Patrick's Day, and I look really good in Spartan green. So let your equipment guy know that, okay?
I saw Golic walking around Chicago. You couldn't believe that river was green. It was a Michigan State weekend. We just didn't get it done, guys. But you got to give Wisconsin some credit. They're a good team. It should be a great tournament. I'm looking forward to watching you guys. I love you every day, and hopefully the Spartans will try to live up to Rece's high expectations, and we'll go from there.
Talking to Tom Izzo for just another second. There we have Mike Brey from Notre Dame. Again, Michigan State 7 seed taking on number 10 seed Georgia. So when the tournament hits, from a philosophical standpoint, do you as a coach differently when it's a one-and-done situation?
I don't think I coach differently, definitely not in the game, but I think preparation's a little different to try to make players understand there is a difference. It's not the NBA where it's best out of 7. It's, so you don't want them paranoid, but you do got to make sure they understand that, like the old poem, Jay, every possession matters or counts. It's the way it is. I think people got to learn that, and it's difficult, but you see so many great teams going home every year, and probably if you looked at the tape, it was, a bad cutout or a bad thing here or there, and you can live with it and say, hey, that's okay, they only made a couple mistakes, but it's what separates champions from the pretenders.
Hey, Tom, congratulations on a great season. Wish you the best of luck in the NCAA tournament as you open up in the 7-10 game against Georgia in Charlotte. Tom, best of luck. Thanks for being with us.
Tom.
Thanks, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, Tom Izzo joining us with his Subway Fresh Take.
Woo! Yes! You guys can leave now.
Is this the right pose?
Yeah.
Is that I posed post-game with some of your people dressed in green, and we all got into the leprechaun pose after they
there
won
you go.
the ACC
there you go.
Championship.
Woo! Great as that. Joining us now, the eventual
like Hans and Franz when you're doing that.
National Championship head coach at the University of Notre Dame, Mike Brey, joins us now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Congratulations, Mike! Woo!
Mike, how you doing, buddy? We're doing great. Who do we Who do we play? I didn't see the show. I'm still at Stamey's Barbecue in Greensboro with the trophy on the table. Who do we play?
And I'm still looking at the picture of the priest hanging from the rim. I thought one of the greatest.
How about that one?
That was fantastic.
Father Pete. Good to be with you guys. Good morning, man. This is what a fun time.
You know, and I guess to start with, in all seriousness, what does it mean for Notre Dame basketball to win their first conference title?
Well, Mike, I mean, it's really powerful for us. Obviously, we spent a lot of time as an independent, so we didn't have as many cracks at a league tournament championship as many other teams in this league have had. But, you know, I think it's one of the more powerful things in the history of our program to do that. And you know, I think for us in the second year in the ACC to create an identity and build some momentum in what is quickly becoming the toughest league. So, you know, I'm really proud of our group, man. They've been a together group through the summer, through our foreign tour to Italy. And as you've heard me say many times, when you got guys like Brand and Connaughton doing it on the court and in the locker room, man, you got a chance.
Mike, you being what I would call an ACC guy, you know, you grew up in Maryland, went to DeMatha, and coached in the ACC for a number of years. Was it a bit surreal for you to have beaten Duke and Carolina twice in the same year and cut the nets down in the Greensboro Coliseum?
Yeah, Jay, it was. I think when you came to shake my hand, I probably looked right through you, you know, after the game. It really was, and it was funny. You know, I was a Big East guy and proud to be a Big East guy all these years, and you know, always kind of watched the ACC, but thought, you know, my identity, Notre Dame, the Big East, playing in the Garden, man, I'm really happy with that. And, you know, it was funny when I went down to Chapel Hill for the announcement that we were going into the league, many of the same media people were there from my days in Durham, and, you know, it was like, welcome home. And, you know, even the other night coming out, I guess it's fate that you come full circle, growing up as a Maryland fan, and being obviously at Duke with you. It's fate that you're back in the ACC, and it's really powerful to be part of an ACC championship. Growing up, watching that tournament, watching those teams play. My uncle played on the first 1960 Duke ACC championship team, so a lot of parallels there.
And Mike, it is remarkable the adversity that you've overcome, having spent so much time with Bilas and being influenced by that. But as you play on Thursday, early game. Jay mentioned this earlier, and thought it was a good point. Sometimes time of game can impact higher seeds. You're early in the day on the first full day of the tournament against Northeastern. You're coming off this euphoric high. You've got a grounded veteran group. But what concerns do you have about making sure that they're back in and as locked in as they've been for much of the season?
Well, we got to have one heck of a practice tomorrow at noon and get into playing in the middle of the day. We were the Night Stalkers down there in Greensboro playing late. I think our Duke game started at 9:50 p.m., so we got to change the body clocks a little. We didn't get back till 4 a.m. Sunday morning. And we're leaving tomorrow, so we got to kind of reset the clocks and get up and be ready to do stuff in the middle of the day. You know, and I do have a lot of faith in our leadership and our group to kind of refocus here and kind of get over and get past the ACC championship. And you know, I think it gives. I've had 10 teams go to the NCAA tournament out here in my 15 years, but I've never had a group coming off a tournament championship going in. So I do feel there's a confidence and a momentum and a belief about this group that the 9 other teams didn't have that I took to the tournament.
What makes, and you mentioned that, so what makes this team different than the 9 other teams you took to the tournament?
Well, I think what happened in Greensboro, Mike, really kind of, you know, gets you feeling and believing maybe at an even another level. You know, and I've had great senior leadership. You know, we've had juniors and seniors here, you know, as key guys. But, you know, what Connaughton and Grant have done for us and how they've developed and gotten the younger guys confident has really been amazing to watch. I just think it's one of the neat stories. Those two guys, Connaughton and Grant, joined at the hip. One going to be in the NBA, one probably in the major leagues. But maybe in the NBA, I don't know. After the other night, there's more NBA people asking about Connaughton. But those two guys, you know, have been so special at at just kind of running the group. And I tell you, it makes it easier on the coach when you have seniors that take ownership of the team and police the locker room and kind of set the standards.
Well, Coach, I mean, congratulations. On the court, it was a great scene, and off the court, it gave a lot of Notre Dame alum the chance to have some great Twitter muscles in bragging about this team. And we look forward to the start of the NCAA tournament, and hopefully have you on down the line as you continue on winning. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Jay, Rece, I got some footage of Golic in the bookstore basketball tournament out here. I was watching it this morning. He was very Herringody-like in bookstore basketball.
Are you using that as some sort of motivation in showing the team of that? Yeah.
I'm going to show Bonzie Colson and Zach August your post defense before we play Thursday, baby.
Well, the only reason I pressed because I wasn't running down the other side of the court. That was the only reason.
He's not showing him to be a good example. It's more a horrible warning.
Yeah, this is the before picture. Thanks, Coach.
Hey, great to be with you guys. Take care. Thanks.
Congrats, Mike.
Mike, congratulations. Mike Brey joining us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. You know, we said this about Izzo, and it's completely true about Brey, too. One of the really good guys in coaching. You know, I love being around coaches because I think you can learn a lot from them, not only about their sport, but about goal setting and achievement. And a question people ask me a lot of times is they say, who's the most normal guy? Who's the most likable guy that you run across in coaching? There are several, but Mike Brey always jumps to the top of the list with me in terms of likable people in coaching.
Completely agree. And you brought up a great point, and Jay, I'll go to you with this, is they just won their – and, again, they were independent for a long time, so they weren't in the conference tournaments a lot. But this is the first one they ever won. So is there they need to get past the – we won our conference tournament, because they can do some damage in this tournament and not just the old happy to be there type of situation.
Yeah, and Mike's got a great feel for his team. That's one of the things I've always admired about him. Mike's not only a good friend of mine. He was a full-time assistant when I was the grad assistant at Duke in the early 90s when Leitner and Hill and Hurley and those guys were there. And he's been a mentor of mine. I've learned a ton from Mike. And one of the things that I've always admired about him is he's a high school teacher. He's a high school teacher at DeMatha. He knows players, and he knows the way they think, and he kind of still, even at our advanced age now, thinks like players think. And his feel for them is great, and he is not a guy that overcoaches. So he knows his guys. He can let them celebrate this amazing accomplishment without immediately cracking the whip on to the next thing, and then when they move forward, they will move forward. But he wants his guys confident. He wants fresh minds and fresh legs going into this tournament. And he did one thing at Delaware. He used to be the head coach of Delaware, and they were playing in their league championship game, where if they win, they go to the tournament. If they don't, they're done. And his guys were tight, and so he gets them in the locker room, and I was sitting in the back, and he's showing them video of the team they're gonna play Drexel. He's showing them video of it, and then at the end, he says, "Now listen, we get down to the end of the game. They like to run a specific play," and he starts rolling the tape, and it's Hoosiers, and he says they like to run the picket fence, and he goes into Hoosiers, and the guys start cracking up, and they're saying, "Hey, if we lose, you're going to be shooter drunk down by the left." You know, they had a blast, and they ran out of the locker room to practice in a totally different frame of mind. And that's the kind of the way he is. Like, his feel for his team is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I did play bookstore basketball.
Did you?
I was horrible. I was a wrestler all the time. I never played basketball, but I did. Everybody played bookstore basketball.
If you were a wrestler, Bilas would argue that you'd fit right in today's college basketball sometimes.
You would be a heck of a post defender now. You could maul whoever you wanted.
And I love this one. Hey, Golic, you should have asked Mike Brey for some Notre Dame gear like Rece did for Michigan State. Seriously, dude? Notre Dame gear? Yeah, I have a real trouble getting that. I mean, really? Ask Brey for really? Notre Dame gear? Yeah. Just go to my house.
It doesn't matter how much gear you have. You always want more.
It is true.
My wife always says, why do you need more of this stuff? You've got 10,000 dry fit shirts at every school you can imagine. I like it.
My wife stopped it. About 6 years in the NFL. About 6 years in the NFL, she said, unless you're bringing home like a free car, stop bringing home the free T-shirts and hats. Don't want them anymore.
The only thing my wife cannot control with me is my shoe collection. I am the Imelda Marcos.
Are you really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, my God.
What are you rocking today?
Air Force Ones. Suede.
All right, Mike and Mike.
And they're spectacular.
Of course they are.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNRadio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike. Werner, the official ladder of the NCAA basketball championships and the official ladder of professional contractors everywhere. Werner, #1 in ladders.